This conference will now be recorded.
Is it on?
It's supposed to be on, so that one's been screwing.
Uh-huh. Hey, Mr. Jackson? Yes.
this is not going to go well. All right, Alan, turn this one down so I don't feel like I'm yelling at myself. Yeah, that's fine. All right. It's like I'm yelling at myself. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's still too loud. Yeah, down, down. Keep going. All right. There we go. All right. Like to call the Board of Supervisors meeting to order. As always, let's start with Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we lost our registrar 2 times back, Ms. Carpenter. Keep her in your thoughts in a moment of silence, I guess. All right. We do have a quorum. We do need to adopt an agenda. Anybody have anything we need to add to the agenda this afternoon?
Just one mention, Mr. Chairman. We like to remove financial policies for today and bring that back. I think, Jennifer, we said on March 2nd? So we would just need your approval to remove that, and we would add it to the March 2nd meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. As always, public comment. It's early. Welcome. All right. Mr. Weekly, start us off with the budget workshop.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to take the opportunity to do some introductions, and I appreciate Ms. Smith was asking me, so not everyone should assume that we have new staff and everyone's aware. So with us today, we have our new finance director. I say new. Jennifer's been with us since September, Jennifer Warren. We're excited. She's been a very contributing member already, taking over things with our ERP conversion, which we have now gone live in. So we welcome Jennifer and as well to the public. And in the back, we have Kimberly Turner. She's the new executive assistant, deputy clerk of the Board of Supervisors. Mr. Berry is moving on as system administrator to help bolster our IT department. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, we have 3 items remaining for discussion today at the budget workshop. I believe you indicated, sir, the order to wish to go through these will be a review of the FY23 year-to-date figures. So you'll get an understanding of where we're at year-to-date on the revenues versus what was budgeted, as well as your on the expenditure side. And then that will lead into the FY24 priority goals and priority issues. I realize the document you have in front of you says FY23 Madison County Goals and Priorities. The idea was to go back, take a look at last year, see what's been accomplished, see what's still ongoing, so the board can see if we want to walk away with what your FY24 goals and priorities will be. And then lastly, we have a pretty detailed and expansive CIP exercise. We've got back some of our early information on facilities condition assessment report, which was actually one of the FY23 goals and priorities. And it's provided a 20-year outlook. We brought that down to a 5-year for your 5-year capital plan. So that is going to take some time. So with that being said, members of the board, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Warren for the review of the FY23 year-to-date.
Good afternoon. I want to start with the expenditure sheet that I have up on the screen. The first thing that I did before meeting with the various department heads is I put together a spreadsheet that gives us a tab for 2020 actuals, 2021 fiscal year actuals, 2022, and 2023. I also, in this tab that you're looking at now, I have in column J our FY23 budget, Column K gives us our year-to-date for July through December, and column L is our percentage of budget for our expenditures by department, and we can toggle by department. And then I also did a VLOOKUP to carry over FY 2021 and 22's actuals from those other tabs so that I could see our 3-year average across those 3 fiscal years. That way, when we sat down with our pre-meetings with the different departments, we were able to look at our 3-year average and kind of talk through the numbers. So just wanting to give you kind of a background on this spreadsheet and why it was put together was really for discussion points with the department heads and analysis on what their numbers are coming up to. And then if you look, we should be at 50% budget based on this being a 6-month. And I have a column L with the percentage of budget. And if we scroll all the way to the bottom, this has all of our various departments, just to give you an idea of where we are overall on the expenditure side. And I will, sorry, I know that's dizzy doing that. We're actually under, we're at 40.4% on the expenditure side versus the 50% target for the first 6 months. So we are under budget on expenditures. Is there any questions or anything you would like for me to dig into on the expenditure side at this point in time? If not, I plan to put this information is available for you to browse by department at any point in time. We can put it together for you.
So I got one quick question. So, how much, can you hear me? How much time, Jennifer, did you go back through? I mean, not all expenditures are level funded. So I guess you went through and hit the ones that could be an anomaly as far as taking a picture at 6 months. So 40.4% overall is a reasonable number.
Correct.
Even, okay.
I believe so. I mean, there are some expenditures that aren't evenly spread throughout the year, but these are actual, this is the estimate based on a spread evenly.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Sure. I'll scroll over to the revenue side. The next spreadsheet is a similar analysis where we look at FY 2021 and 22 with a 3-year average across those 3 fiscal years. And our FY 23 budget is in column L, and our year-to-date actuals for July through December 6 months in column M. And one thing, obviously it's 50%. Again, one thing to note with the implementation of our ERP system being right at December 30th, we went live in Munis, and there's about a week and a half gap that might be December items might not be in here on the treasurer side, just because of that implementation timeline and go live. She had to hold on booking some things until the next week. So. But we feel like this is a very close number. So we're pretty close on real property at 49.4%. And if we go down all the way to the bottom of our revenue projections overall, we're at 43.4. And I would like to make a note that I looked back at last fiscal year 22 actuals, what we approved budget on revenue in FY 22 versus what came in was at 88% overall versus 100%, obviously. So I did want to throw that little metric in, but expenditure side 40%, revenue side 43.4. And again, I'm happy to, we'll provide these so that you can easily toggle on the other spreadsheet if you'd like. Let me pull that one back up. Yeah, this one you can toggle on the department and look, if you want to just look at a specific department, you can do that with the toggle to see the numbers, or the sort filter, I should say. Any questions for me on kind of what we've put together for year-to-date numbers, percentages of where we're at, and our background philosophy on what we pre-meetings with our departments and how we went over some numbers. And I even sat down with the treasurer and we looked at the 3-year averages on revenue. And we've kind of done a little bit of a deep dive on that side. We still have more work to do on the revenue side, but we've gotten a good start looking at across all 3 of those years and the averages. So
Give us something to study for a couple days.
yeah, and I'm
exciting.
I apologize. I couldn't get this to you in advance. With the Munis, I wasn't able to finish it until recently. So I will get this over, and feel free to let me know if you have questions before we have our budget workshops with the departments.
I'd just like to add to that. This will help play into when we get to the FY24 revenues. Of course, we're going to talk about expenditures when you go through departments and outside agencies. Right now, it's still early on, so I know Stephanie is working on kind of a generation of a new report because they went over to Avinity, which is the land records and side of the house. So plus, I believe our commissioner said in about 3 weeks, he'll have assessor information that'll reflect the new construction. So that'll help us with our real property numbers as well. So when you start seeing those revenues, we can take a look back. But the process that Jennifer has gone through, whether it's on the departmental request on the expenditure side or the revenues, we're looking back at least 3 to 4 years. We realize there's a COVID year in there. We know that, but we're looking back several years to kind of see if there's some historics or some forecasting for the future.
All right, Jonathan. Let's go to the next one.
All right, so I believe next one you want to move on to goals and priorities. Okay. And I have handouts too if you want to, if you like to scratch through or just do it from your computer, whichever you prefer. So yes, this says FY23. I think it's good to look back at the goals and priorities set last year, and because some of those are still ongoing projects, and hopefully we can have at least some thought if this will be our FY24 list when we leave today, or we can certainly bring that back. So we'll start in order. Improve access to broadband services. I believe we could safely put a date in there now. All of the VATI grants, everything requires completion by August 2025. So I would recommend leaving that there, but adding the completion date now that we know that. And it would be a good communication tool to the public too, because this document is part of your overall budget book link that goes online. Next, item 2, complete major capital projects, the public safety radio system. That should be completed this year. The board took a huge step of identifying a new location for our Northern Tower site. We had some complications of the cost of a road. So the board recently moved to exit the 2 existing leases they had and entered into a new lease for a tower site that we hope will be constructed on Churchill Road in Etland. So that'll be moving away from the Hughes River site. So still have the Northern Tower. But we're projecting that project to be completed. That will have a reduction of fund balance because that alone has a debt service or remaining funding of, I think, about 3.3 or 3.5 million. So I believe we can put an end date by possibly this end of this calendar year. I'll talk with Brian to get a more pinpoint date, but I would imagine you want to leave that on there because it is a major project and it has debt service with it. Financial software replacement. There are 2 phases left, and Tyler Muniz and Jennifer can certainly chime in anywhere she'd like. I believe on the capital side, you'll see reflected some monies that'll be needed for that. They have rolled out phase 1, which I believe is on the AP side, and then payroll phase 2 starts in April, so in the next couple months. And then there's phase 3, which is the permitting side, and building and zoning will also roll out in April. But we believe those will be completed in calendar year 2023. So again, it's about filling out the date so we can put go live as 1/1/2024, but that's still ongoing, and the board has committed to that project. So it would just be updating. Moving along, number 3, completed facilities inventory and need assessment. So the board moved forward with that, and we are now receiving back our draft report. I have a call to go over to finalize that report with Bureau Veritas tomorrow afternoon. But that goes into 3A, which is program heavy maintenance for county buildings and grounds. So that facilities condition assessment report, it gives you a 20-year outlook on, and you're going to see it in your capital spreadsheet when we get to it, but you'll have 3 columns. You'll have the life expectancy, you'll have the existing age of the equipment, and the remaining useful life of that equipment. And that's kind of how it's been prioritized. But I would say you could leave that on here or take it off because we're moving in that direction. The only thing, if you remove that, I would recommend we add computer maintenance management software, so CMMS. That's something that I would like for us to acquire this year or purchase, so we can work more off of an electronic work order system. Our facilities department, if something's needed right now, it's a lot of phone calls, occasional emails and texts, and that is no way to try to prioritize workload. Or for those who put in those requests, you can't track it. And I can't, as a manager or as administrator, kind of track our labor force versus the open work orders, what's closed, what's pending. So I think it's a good, efficient way to move forward with work orders and facilities and maintenance. So if you like to make 3A, obtain and implement a CMMS program, I think that would be fitting now that you have the needs assessment.
There was discussion about us writing for the schools program, so we didn't have to purchase that. Does that not work?
So we are still exploring that. I know Mooney is waiting on some additional costs. So at a minimum, if we don't have to go out and purchase a new program, if we could piggyback them and the board of supervisors is okay with that, the school board's okay with that, it would at least most likely be some addition in licensures, or also some expansion, because I'm sure they have, a certain amount of facilities that are kept in that system. So it's building off of that system. So there will be some cost, whether it's buying our own or going off. We are, Supervisor Dawson, exploring the piggybacking off the schools program.
But the intent by the board should be that we either do or do not support implementation of a CMMS at the cheapest price possible. Is that right? Add that to the priority list?
Yeah.
There you go.
So thank you. So we'll change 3A for that, with the understanding that we're going to move to try to piggyback. I believe Dr. Timmons, which is the school's director of facilities, and Mr. Frazier, our facilities maintenance manager, are already doing test trials. The goal was to set up, say, 2 of our facilities and put the inventory in there and see how the work order system would work. Also, that work order system should work with the access report that this facility condition report was made from. So there's benefit where we don't have to keep buying things from Bureau Veritas. We can put that into the CIP or the CMMS software. So we will update that. Thank you. 3B, plan for a new EMS facility while considering development of a public safety campus. The board took action. You've acquired the former rescue property. So unless the board gives me a direction to go out, the public safety campus was thrown around for the Fairground Road, the Hoover Ridge property. So unless you get me direction to do that, I don't have that programmed in here, so you may want to change that just says plan for the new or renovations of the EMS facility. We do have numbers um, plugged into the CIP for the renovation, and I think that would reflect one another what you're trying to do. I haven't seen any directive from the board that says we're going to move out there as a public safety campus, which would look like law enforcement, EMS, and anything else.
We bought ourselves a building. Seems like we need to quit paying around, renovate the dang building cheap as possible, and move on with this. No move out to Uber Ridge.
Yes,
It's
I
got to be a
agree.
priority. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
There you go.
All right.
Put that on there.
So we're going to just call that as a renovation and get rid of the public safety
3D.
campus. Thank you. 3C, dispose of surplus properties. So you've disposed of Thrift Road. I'm not sure if you want to leave that on as a gold priority or take it off with the understanding that just because if it's not on the list, if you direct me to do something else, whether it's RP or whatever with Cricketsville, I can certainly do things that's not on this list. You direct me all the time. If you want it on the list as a tractor, we can keep it there. But at least we have to update to reflect Thrift Road is gone. The Rappahannock Community Service Board owns that building and will be renovating to bring additional services into Madison County. So whatever you would like to do with 3C, I'm happy.
Thrift is off. Don't own it. Kriglersville, thankfully, we still do own. We're calling this goals and priorities. I cannot see how this is a high priority in any way. We have wasted so much time and money on this.
Yep. I agree.
If we can work with somebody at a zero cost type of basis, then we could leave it. But as far as this being a high priority, this has got to be this is lowest on my list at this point.
All right.
Are we way off?
Yes, no, I agree.
Do we want to leave it on this list and
No.
put it as like X or something?
I'll just
leave it for the sake of having the name out there.
I mean, with no date on it, no
I'm
target
fine, I'm
date.
fine with that. I think that we've wasted so much time and money on this.
I concur.
And if it's on this list, then I agree. If we leave it just as a placeholder, that's fine. But putting any county effort into this is just more money we're throwing at something we're not getting any return on.
So I'm hearing leave on the list and put as TBD or just omit it. And then, like I said, if it's not on the list, you can still direct me to do something at a later date.
I'd leave it on there, put a TBD. And
That's fine.
just
Everybody
as a
fine with
marker.
that?
Yes.
Yeah.
But is everybody on the page that there are so many things that we've got going on.
I don't
This
want to
has
waste
be
another
the
year
lowest.
on it.
Yeah, okay.
Is that right? All right. There you go.
Okay.
Z. What's
Okay. 4, establish and maintain an ongoing CIP. That really, I don't know if you really want to leave that on there. We started that last year and we're moving forward on momentum. So that's, as I look at that now, that should be really more of a goal. Like, you'll establish that CIP and you'll maintain it. That's just a given, but we can leave that on there if you want it there.
Working with CIP, working with the CIP, and especially this, and I don't know, I really do. I think it's great value. Working with the schools on the CIP at Carter United on, and then it's all trickling back to y'all. We're going to talk about it here in just a couple of minutes. I think there's great value in that, like just massive value. And since they are such an overwhelming presence and such a substantial portion of the budget, both our CIP and their CIP, having that process in place is just an absolute win. And especially with Dr. Timmons, and he is on his game in a big way. I think it needs to stay there.
All right.
Yeah,
And
I think so,
that should
too.
be the goal every year for us to make sure that it's up to date and accurate.
What do you got down there?
Well, I was just to say, yeah, I'd like to see it stay on there because hopefully our citizens will look at what our goals and priorities are and see that, that we have considered it and we are working on it. So that's the reason I'd like it to stay on there.
With that CIP, CIP always strikes me as like new projects. There's a bunch
New
of projects that
projects.
we're going to go into here that are at a critical point of kind of imminent failure. And we need to be addressing those. And it's not as much CIP, but there's such major items that I think that that's where they should be.
Do we have any capital asset replacement plan? I know we let a lot fall in CIP and it's a small municipality, but we could start planning.
The what Jonathan's going to go over here in the next item, which is the CIP list.
Okay.
I think that off of that, and then also working, and he's getting these numbers from Bureau Veritas' list.
Okay.
I think that kind of will start us in that direction. And he's
Okay.
got, I mean, he showed it to me for like 2 seconds before, and it looks terrific. As far as good information, it looks horrible as far as cost. I think that going through that will really show where we're at on some of these things, and then we need to start prioritizing that. Is that where you're going?
Yeah, I mean, every CIP can consume everything, but some of it's asset replacement.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to make sure we're clarifying between the two.
Once he rolls it, and the question was whether to do the priority and the issues before we do the CIP, and I think it's kind of what we're going to end up getting to here very promptly is this CIP list and what he's got on this OneDrive. Going through that, we're going to have to start trying to really itemize, and it's asset replacement, it's just upkeep, it's things that
that's fine. We can
will
look at
add
it
up
at that point.
fast. But once we go through it, I think it'll make better sense. It looks
Okay.
like. Jonathan, keep going.
All right, number 5, it's still ongoing. Negotiating optimal public water and sewer agreement with Green and Orange counties. Well, really, it's about negotiating. We have a negotiation with Orange and Madison. We have a signed memorandum of agreement. It's just now waiting for Green's withdrawal. I believe there will be one more resolution, Gracie. I was made aware of, so we'll have to, and I'm going to bring that to you all on the 14th to ask for a public hearing. But supposedly Green is nearing their withdrawal, so I would recommend leaving that on the list, whether we're rewording, but we have not finalized the exiting of Greene County at this time.
Yeah, I think we could probably change it to 3/31/23 would be a decent target.
You are an optimist.
You think 3 or 6/30/2023?
Oh, okay. All right, 6:30.
We have no real control this time,
No.
other than
That's
passing
right.
this incorrect final resolution.
Yeah.
We've had 3 of those so far.
So Supervisor Dawson,
It's just on there.
so what was that?
Just put TBD on it. I mean, like you said, we don't have any control.
Green just lost their manager, and that seems like that's going well. So whenever they get their act together and get exiting, we'll all be there.
So we'll put that as TBD.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
Number 6, so 6A, provide and encourage adequate training and certifications. I think that should always stay because we're doing that. And I think that goes with 6C. 6B, I would like to remove. It says provide more benefit contribution for employees. That was set there last year. And I want to recognize the board. You took a huge stride last year. You provided pay increase. I think that was the second year of back-to-back 5% COLAs, but particularly on the benefit side, you picked up additional health care. We don't have our health care numbers, and I have told every department that have sat down with me, constitutional officer or not, that if you ask me what my plan is, I don't have a plan right now because I'm tracking a lot of other expenditures. There's a lot of unknowns. We have the first round of school budgets that came in. The General Assembly is going to make some determination for teachers and constitutional officers. And all that has to shake out. So I'm certainly not looking to bring you all this year and trying to ask for the more contribution on that, just because I know it's going to be a heavy lift this year. So I'd like to remove 6B if that's okay with the board, but leave 6A and 6C.
Go to C, Jonathan.
All right, 6C, you're going to see some of these incentive programs. We had it as a goal, and now we have some departments that's actually put together their incentive programs. We have one for building and zoning. Emergency communication has one. I'm trying to remember here. I don't have my folder in front of me. EMS, but the idea is, all right. Certainly, there are salary ranges now, but how do you move through the salary ranges, and what's the benefit to the county and also to the employee? So on the county side, it's not just asking supervisors, "Hey, more money." It's if you agree to these certification plans in any nominal amount that goes with that. That way, those numbers don't change, whether it's employee A or employee B between now and 5 years, whatever. That's the increments that they get. But it's also an increased skill and that they have and is an improved service for the county. So I like to deal with if someone says, hey, why did this department or these individuals get increases? Well, they have these certifications and they followed along a certification. So it's also an incentive that employees see when they start here. How can I move along? Well, you can move along through your grades and you can move along through salary based on the certification process. So the public safety pay scale, we had some earlier conversation. Jennifer did a lot of good legwork and good feedback from the sheriff's department, and just not sure how it's going to shake out. We got to have that discussion with the board. I think it was a lot of good data collection. But certainly I'll just make the statement, if the state makes some type of a COLA award, it's going to make it difficult to do a lot of other adjustments. So again, we have to look at total picture. I recommend leaving it there just because you can always look to adopt the public safety scale and you can always look to when that would become effective. So even if you had it TBD or you had it as a January 1, 2024, you would set, if you want to approve the program, the salary increases that would go with that. And on the public safety scale, it gives you some time to further study it if you need to. You may not like the first rendition. You may say we want to add some extra factors. So, and you can make it effective at a later date. So I recommend leaving 6C there. Actually 6A and 6C and removing 6B.
Very good. The incentive program we've been talking about for a long time, and that if we can, we've gone down the path and explored like merit-based pay and some of this stuff. These direct improvement or direct certifications and skill sets that directly affect the way that we can service the public seem to be a good basis for increasing pay, where sometimes in government they just increase. The pay scale thing we've been talking about for a while, and we know that we've got issues with, regardless of whether or not we go with the comp board funding or the pay scale. The pay scale is something that can stick with us for a significant period of time. Then we try to balance it out on whether or not, depending on what the state does on that. Is that right? Good.
So the public safety pay scale, that's sheriff, EMS, dispatch, and so what about? So that's Brian Gordon.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And okay, and it looks like those two, maybe public safety pay scale ought to be C, and develop incentive program all by itself, because that's across all departments and
Okay.
stuff, right? You know what I mean?
So we'll make and develop an incentive program, Supervisor Yao, 6B, and then
Yeah.
I'm hearing keep public safety scale as C, 6C.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Clay just went into a little bit, but what do you envision as an incentive program?
I'll give you an example, and the one you've already looked at is on the building and zoning side. So if you're moving, I'm sorry, sir, do you have additional part of that? I didn't mean to jump in.
With just certification type stuff?
So we have a process for the academia. So if you get an associate's or a bachelor, and there's a program for that, it has to be applicable, right?
So,
But on the certification side, we don't currently have that. There are some certifications that are required, like if you're a deputy, you have to go through the academy. That's natural. If you're an animal control officer, you have to go to the academy. But there are additional things, so we'll stick with building and zoning. That's one you already reviewed, and we said we will bring back. Most likely, we'll do that during their department request. or we can set all those aside at a future work session. So being a combination inspector, right now that just recognizes one discipline or other. It's a combination for residential or a combination for commercial. And you go through the disciplines of plumbing and electrical and so forth. So each one of those certifications or a plan reviewer would have a recognized increase once they obtain those certifications. On the zoning side, there's different things for zoning administrators, certifications, so there's a process for that. On the commercial side, it's those same disciplines plus commercial plan reviewer. The goal in that department is get everyone, I don't care if we have, 2 or 3 people that are certified in plan reviewing or certifications in a trade discipline, because right now with it being separate, Jamie is the only one that can review as the building official. And then we have Carl doing inspections and we have Joe doing E&S. Well, if Carl can't do an E&S, he's already out on the site. So we get folks trained, pay them for it, but they can do more. And hopefully in the future, let's say if there's more building going on, well, if you're able to do multiple reviews of E&S or a building, maybe not really asking for that other person because we don't have a specialty, we have redundancy. So that's just an example of one certification. Brian has a kind of a communication officer 1, 2, and 3. There's different training that's involved in that. There's a NIMS component that's involved in that level as well. So it provides more skill set as you advance. So you're not just asking for, sure, merits are nice, but I'm looking at how can I tie the salary increase to a certification that, one, could bump their salary, but shows the board and the citizens who's paying that this is why, because they are providing more service to the county through these certifications. I don't know if I answered your question or not.
No, the merit and certifications, I think, are tied together. Because we've tried the merit deal, and even though we do like employee evaluations, we never go back to those evaluations and arbitrarily say, this person needs to step up, this person's not doing as well, so we reduce. We never do that. So the certifications are really the only measurable,
Tangible.
exactly type of way that we can do this. The only one I'm getting to though is I'm going to the way that you set it up, the A, B, and C, and the A being the training and certs, the B being incentives, and then C being the public safety scale. A and B are basically the same thing.
So
Except A would be maybe the mechanism.
Well,
To encourage, though.
you've got to
that's always
establish the program first, and then they would go through. So provide and encourage adequate training means you provide the funding, you identify what they're going to train for, which is always around the budget time, and you provide the funding for that training and cert. So one, you have to develop the incentive program. So what are the certifications for that department or that person? And then you provide the funding and encourage them to take that training.
Everybody okay? You good? Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
we'll change the order to make it line up in
But
the
we're
steps.
doing A, B, and C, like Cardi said.
Yes, sir.
Everybody good? Perfect. Move on. Are there any other goals and priorities that we're missing?
I do have one question. The upcoming sewer plant project, is that work into this, or is that leave that delayed, or how's that work into this?
It's a good question. So because that's a because that's an RSA asset and not the county's, they can borrow the monies and make a decision on that. I appreciate you pointing that out, Supervisor Jewett. It doesn't hurt to have down there if you support the project to encourage. Maybe you want to use some language that's adequate or moderate expansion of our water and sewer facilities to allow for moderate or potential growth. But we won't. The board doesn't have that total control of that mechanism because they are an authority, which means they are governed by the SEC. They establish their rules and regulations, their rates. They are borrowing the money through either Virginia Rural Resource Authority or Rural Development as another funding stream. But certainly, sir, if there's going to be any modest growth or type of growth, you really need that. Both of those facilities are dated, so they're going to require upgrades anyway. So if you're doing that off existing customers and not growing your customer base, you haven't expanded, right, which means you're going to take in new revenue. You're dealing with the same customer base, but still have a debt service. So I'm open, sir, to you and the board on any direction to add that. It certainly makes sense.
We want to do. You want to add it?
Well, here's
The RSA guys.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Here's RSA is going to be the one doing all of that, but we're going to be the ones that hear about it. So how can we word this? I mean, if RSA comes in there and says that they're going to double the size of the sewer plant, now it's going to be up to us to approve what the result of that is going to be. I don't know exactly how I want to word something.
Yeah, that's your worst wording yet.
My only concern with supporting it right now, and I do support some expansion, but is I want to find out what they're going to do with those taps
Yeah.
before I sign off of approval. And I know they're their own thing and everything, but
No, we asked. We asked at the I'm trying to remember, was it you that asked?
Yeah.
I've asked, what's the policy on obtaining
Yeah.
taps? And the comment was, well, they are for sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it.
they're going to treat them like
Well,
assets. I'm not in
It's-
favor.
Yes.
We owe them.
Yeah.
something on that.
I owe Supervisor Yao a document that kind of
That's
gives a
my
rough
concern.
draft
I
of what
already
policy.
supported it.
It was a terrible comment. That is not
Yeah.
a good policy.
Yes.
It is a concern when we have limited availability of this. The other one that I think goes into that, though, doesn't it also, to some extent, we are kind of governing or pushing the direction in which they extend those lines when it pertains to growth?
Yeah.
I mean, we talk about the fish backside, and that's natural because of where the sewer treatment is, but to some extent, we need to be involved in that.
So that should play heavily into the comp plan. So I mean, the comp plan probably ought to go on here somehow.
There you go.
Oh shoot! Papa Carl said, "Done slipped me." It was good too.
So Supervisor.
I know what it was. So I asked the question about how those taps, those new EDUs get distributed, and RSA, the rest of the board members agreed to let us here in Madison look at the current policy and offer changes to that. So that's what we need to do. We need to
I'd like to
offer
see
some
that
changes
policy.
to that policy.
And so I commit to a time to Supervisor Yao. I'll have that to you before the next RSA board meeting. So it's a draft, kind of what a draft policy could look like, Supervisor Dawson, for kind of think of a service district, although we have one plant and other places have multiple areas, but look at it from that angle. And it's not uncommon to sell what they call outside the environs, which is outside of wherever that little cloud or service area is. Usually you pay at a higher premium, but you're reserving certain capacity. I think it does go hand in hand. What Supervisor Yao had said is have your comp plan in there. But we do need to, again, I'm going to provide that draft. I took my general manager hat off, but I bring that to the table to provide that to Supervisor Yao. But I am too concerned about how those EDUs are distributed. You have your 29 corridor. If you're trying to support that, you can't, anyway, there's time to work through that. So when I send that to Supervisor Yao, I'll send that to the whole board. Ultimately, Supervisor Yao will be taking it to RSA, so any feedback will probably have to come from him.
Couldn't we add this, since we really are not in control of number 5? Couldn't we have as number 5 the RSA exit of Green and then RSA future plans and policy in Madison?
So are we looking to combine number 5 to execute?
future plans and policy, and that would take care of the EDU
Yeah.
side, that would
I like
take
it.
care of the development side. But then the caveat to that, and it's a good one to add on here, and it should be one of our goal and priorities, even though we're going to do it without any question. Add 7 is the comp plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's important.
That makes sense.
And then it gives us some teeth on number 5, so we can do something and not just inevitable, and go from there. Does that sound?
It does, Mr. Chairman, because I'm a slow note taker. Can you give me number 5 again?
It's the exit of Greene County
okay.
and RSA future plans and policy in Madison.
2 different things there, Jonathan. Right?
What plans and
2
policies?
things, yeah.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Okay. All right. So we have that new number 5. We've corrected our ordering of 6A through C and added number 7, comprehensive plan. Is there anything else the board wishes to add or change?
What do you say down there?
I'm thinking.
I think we're going to see. I think we're going to have to. Going through this on this first meeting is a good way to go. A bunch of this going into the next topic of CIP, and then all the way through the budget process, we may come back to this goals and priorities list and say we want to add this now that we've looked at the whole picture. So we're probably going to come back to this. He's not listening. Good.
I am. You said this list is now, but we're probably going to come back to it. I'm asking how we're going to drive the next.
We're going to roll back into this, Jonathan.
Yes, sir.
No. It's just it's a living document.
You can.
All right. Are we good on this one? Let's go to the next one. It looks too fun and expensive.
All right, CIP. As Jennifer brings that up, I just want to kind of explain the process of what you're getting ready to look at. I understand we'll have to have an overall consolidated list. The big effort of this list is from the facility side. In the past, we've asked you for what we thought we would replace, or on average, so much money for HVAC replacement, so much money for paving or concrete repair, and things of that nature. With the Bureau Veritas facility condition assessment report, Y24 for each facility, and just added those up. I selected some things from that list based on their remaining useful life or some other maintenance history that I know of from our facilities manager, and put that on a recommendation tab. All those summed up, and that's what represents that 1.1 number. Of that 1.1 million, I just plugged in a number. It doesn't mean the final number. You all determine that. Is roughly $750,000 for renovation of the EMS facility. We will not have that draft PER report back until February the 6th is when that's due. So that number will be given to the board and you all refine it. So I had to plug some number in there for renovation. So of that 1.1, 750,000, when you go to the EMS tab, is located there. The other items, Mr. Chair, members of the board, are the additional department requests that are not facilities. So the sheriff is requesting 4 sheriff vehicles for a total of 151,000. They are replacing some tasers at 66,000. There are additional AEDs. So this topic recently came up. I know there was grant funding and additional funding that you all did in FY21 maybe, or FY22, somewhere around there, that purchased some AEDs for county facilities. And I was told that the sheriff's department was still short. There's some additional personnel and even their facility that needs the AED. So that's 25,000. The next one, I haven't even informed them yet, but I think we're going to have to. There's a request for a drone, and 7,500 will cover some of those. It's also additional stop the bleed kits. The drone, we may have to take a secondary look of consideration at and maybe take that off. I did talk to the sheriff's department, and they have 2 that was purchased last year. And Captain Nestis said they're more than willing to allow use or come assist. They basically would be assisting us because they get the license to fly. So I would recommend we would pull that one off, but that was an additional request.
It's a dumb request.
And then under finance, there's additional costs we anticipate for the ERP of roughly 107,000. And Jennifer's got some numbers behind that. We just didn't make a number up there. The FY25 though, is that what someone else forecasted? All right. So
We can take that off, but I wanted to just have it.
okay.
It's on there.
So we had emergency. I think EMS made some additional requests that would be in FY25. So we're going to take those off because you still have to decide on some the actual overall renovation of the facility. I think we need to deal with that first before we look at some additional. I'm not saying I understand the science and the reporting, and I'll take a minute to mention that for those 2 items, the amplifier in the schools. That is a cost that's going to come around with the new radio system and the compatibility with, they call them BDAs, but bidirectional amplifiers. So that will be, I'm going to go as far as qualified as a need versus a want. So we'll put that as part of the FY24. We're not asking for that right now. The fire and EMS paging system upgrade, there are studies out there about how folks are alerted quickly with tones dropping and all. And apparently there are different systems out there that kind of slowly get your attention without that cardio component. We're not asking for that right now, so we'll scrub those. So just please focus on the FY24 Department Capital Request Summary, which totals roughly 362,533, and that would need to be added with the facilities annual FY24 of 1.1. So that's the summary, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. We can go through each tab. Would probably be beneficial.
Yep, go through each tab.
All right, go to the first animal shelter, please. If you'll go up to the top. So I want to explain, and I extracted segments of the Bureau Veritas report for this CIP, ones that I thought was relative. Under cost description, that's really the description of what the item is. If it's windows or doors, or if it's painting or water heaters or HVAC systems, whatever it be, that's fine in that A column of cost description. Column B is a lifespan, so that's what you would estimate the useful life, and you can see those years. Then column C is the existing age of what we have now, and column D is the remaining use of life. So, for example, as Jennifer has highlighted in line 2, it's a lifespan of 30. It's currently 18 years old and replacement at 12. I don't think that everything on this list you would go through tried and true and say, yep, we're going to replace it at that. Certainly painting and things like that, I think, are at your discretion, but those items are on here. The next columns, E through F, G, H, and I. So you have a 5-year plan, right? I said they went from 20 years. I gave you the next 5-year cost that's in that plan for the fiscal year. So starting in FY24, you have a listing. If Jennifer, if you scroll down, I might actually come back up for a minute, but go down to the bottom. You'll see as she scrolls, there's things highlighted in yellow. That makes sense when we get to the bottom. There are 3 columns at the bottom. Total cost by fiscal year. So you can see FY24's fiscal year cost, 25, 26, on through 28. The next one, total cost from FY24 through FY28. That's your total cost. And then in the yellow is what I'm recommending for FY24. But that's at your discretion if you're in agreement. If you want to forego that, take it off, we can do that. So for the animal shelter, there's a total of $44,210. What is that comprised of? We'll start from the top. Thank you. Line 12, there's a lavatory sink. That's one of those big sinks that needs to be replaced in the back. That's roughly $1,100. I think we would be looking to allocate fundings for each facility for these purposes, but this gives you the breakdown. Their equipment, far as their HVAC systems for heating and air, you can see they're all coming due at one time, and we've had a services quite frequently out there from our HVAC contractor, and now it's coming to the thing of part availability or even not having parts to support for those items. So I just grabbed all of those as a recommendation to replace. So that's on the list of that 44,000. Please continue down.
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
So it's going to cost 14, 18, 23.
We can do a quick
Yeah,
sum
I mean,
of those tabs right there.
Your HVAC stuff, you're saying that's going to cost.
Yeah, they have multiple
Yeah,
units out there.
How many units? How many units do they have out there, and why do they have so many units? Like what?
So you have different sides. You have
It's not that big of a building.
well, but you have indoor areas for different areas. You have the cats. You have the areas up front, the common area where they bring pets in to meet one another. You have other sections of the animal shelter office that are on different units, and then you have the areas where the dogs kept at. So there's a few units out there.
So this is Veritas's split of the components of.
Yes, they went out to each facility and assessed what we have there. So this is actual equipment that is on site.
But to Clay's point, it's not necessarily one unit. He might have taken a unit and they split it up into a couple of different components.
I'm with you on that, but I mean,
Right?
I do not. I don't think that the cats need a different temperature than the dogs. And that goes for the offices the same. And if they're outside, we shouldn't be doing anything with
Right.
the air out there. It would seem that we should be looking at more effective means of, instead of replacing like window units or something of that. I'm using that just as an
Yeah.
example.
Are they
But-
just old hanging gas furnaces? Is that what they are?
Or-
Like that you see in the shop?
Systems.
Yeah, there are many splits and some are, I think, the hanging gas. So
That's
We-
what it is. It's just obsolete.
Yeah, so we
outdated
should-
mess.
so I'm hearing if we replace, just let's try to find, maybe 2
Effective.
units that could do the whole building
100%.
versus whether they're 3.5 ton versus a 1 ton.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cost effective.
Okay.
Not replacing the same antiquated stuff that we're grading this stuff on.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I'll make a
So
note.
some of these numbers, and that's why I think going through this list is kind of important. I really want to ask about the sink. Is the bottom falling out of the sink? I mean, how many components on a sink go bad? I mean, is it?
Yeah, I can.
I'm just saying. I mean, $1,000 sink, but I mean, look at. I mean, that's why I've got some issue with this. Is that, and you bring it up about the hanging obsolete stuff, is that we're pricing it as replacing that garbage. We need to start knocking some of these numbers down. I'm not trying to short our facilities in any means, but I mean, these numbers are going to add up real quick. Even with the 750 EMS facility, which we haven't even gotten to, which who the heck knows what that's going to cost. Hopefully less than that. But I mean, we need to be looking at it a little bit different than just plugging numbers in.
Okay.
But this
Right.
came from Veritas,
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
and they're good.
Yeah, and the goal of this, and I stand by. I know Stacy from the school side agrees with it. Is getting us a list. Like we don't currently have this. Our last report did some indexing that just showed percentage of either moderate or replace those type of things. It didn't have any life cycles or replacement figures to it. So this gives you at least a start for that.
But I agree, going back with the same old obsolete stuff. It could get costly.
Understood. Understood. Fire extinguishers. I mean,
Need those.
though you got to do that every so often. So again, it makes sense. And then some emergency exit lighting. Obviously, those are important. So that makes up the 44,000. The big bulk of it is the HVAC, as the chairman
The
pointed out.
HVAC is it's just shy of 42K. It's 41,860 in HVAC.
And we could look to stagger where we can. The out of all the facilities, I know the ones we've had a lot of frequent issue. We're dealing with the chiller over at the courthouse. The sheriff's, which is sheriff in 911 building, we have a lot of issues. You'll see those replacements. So those are your frequent flyers. And we had one that we had to upsize a motor and make work at the old ABC building. So certainly should get consideration. You're going to see a lot of HVAC recommendations as a theme through here based on our service history, not just the years of life, but our service history. But I understand, board, that we will go back and look to see if there's a better way to heat and cool without the multiple systems that we have now. All right, next, arcade, you see I put 0. But there are some we own that building. If you look at the brick point, repointing in line 3, that's 100 plus, you know. We own this building. Currently, it's housed by the Historical Society. They store a lot of the artifacts and things in there. It's also, they maintain a calendar for other civic groups that meet in there, like the Master Gardener Club, stuff like that. The county itself does not.
Spending all that money for?
I did not put any money in there. My recommendation was 0 because I wasn't sure what you want to do with this property. My approach, though, members of the board, is if we own it, please tell me what you want to do with it. Are we going to maintain it, sell it? Do we want to try to fix it some and rent it out? But I did not put anything in for maintenance because this was when I really needed to talk to you about it.
Why can't we sell it?
We're 50/50 sales last year.
So I
Why
did
can't
not.
we sell it,
Entrepreneur
Clay?
would
You've
do
got
a
to
much-
look like you've
I-
got some
I-
history.
This
This is one of those. This is one of those. This is one of those buildings that I'm not against. I'm not against going down that path. I'm sure we're going to hear about it after this. But it seems like this is one of those buildings that are near and dear to Madison County's heart. Has everybody been in that building? You been in there?
Never been in.
You ever
I
been
have.
in there? It's impressive. It's super.
It's cute.
All right.
Maybe somebody could buy it and restore it to its
Right.
former
I don't
glory.
know. I don't know. If y'all want to sell it, I'd go down that path. People seem to like this building. Now I don't know why, but people do seem to like it. It's got all kind of positives, I guess. No one's sharing it with me, but
So, Charlotte,
There's
is
the
that
sink.
building, is that,
It's missing a front leg.
that's close to the oldest building on Main Street, isn't it?
Probably it
At this
is.
point?
I would say it probably is. Yeah. But you know, it's just
It's
running
missing a
down
front
every
leg.
year,
It's a
running
mop
down,
sink.
running down.
Starting to fix up all around it.
I have
Starting
that
to fix up
I will
around
give
it.
Yeah.
you a leg for a second. Exactly. That's my problem with this. Y'all want to go down the path and see about selling the arcade? I'm sure there's something, Gracie.
I don't have any problem with trying to sell it. If somebody could buy it and make it nice.
Yeah, it's a historic. I believe has a historic designation, but that would be on the new owner. But I didn't put any monies in there as recommendation because it's like one of those things you need to take care of buildings that your primary using versus a secondary. So
Right.
It's gonna get to the point like the tourism office did, and it's gonna be falling in the street.
there's some things when you get the report, you're going to have all the narrative, but that's just the brick point up. That's referenced there. So yeah,
All right, so let's add this
Check
to
with Tracy, see what's.
let's add.
what am I asking her? That way I'm clear.
Yeah, what is?
Well, she was telling me, maybe you all, of some other stuff that's brewing in town.
Oh, yeah.
Well, two houses have been sold right on
The
Main
houses,
Street. John Elma's
and they're
house.
working it.
and the old
They're
general
fixing
store.
them up.
Yeah.
So
So
what do you think?
where is that
Market-
coming
the
from?
marketability. Private.
Maybe
Okay.
somebody wants to own the
Uh,
whole street like they do in Little Washington.
You're thinking that the arcade may be a marketable product right now that we can convey. I think the zero number for 24 is correct.
Yeah.
Why don't we go down the path and
You want me to have it appraised or?
no, don't spend any money on it.
No.
All right.
I think we should put on. I've got on my notes may sell. We'll see how that goes. But let's add that to maybe, I don't know, talk to us about that maybe in March at one of our regular meetings. Does
Okay.
that seem reasonable? Kind of go down the path. Kevin and you, he's talking to you all the time. Talk to him, see what he says.
Okay.
I'm not saying we've got to use him, but he seems to know town real estate maybe.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes.
That would be nice to see an entrepreneur of some sort turn it into something that creates a little more traffic in town.
There is the quote right there. That was very, that annuls your other poor one. All right, moving on. Circuit court.
Okay. Circuit court.
Uh-oh.
A lot of that is windows. So if that's something you want to forego, I do know that I've heard from Lita on that for some time, and I went back through the report. There's something going on that it doesn't maintain. I guess seal is the proper term. It's got
fogged up.
yeah all the way through. So I highlighted it. If you want, I will tell you. Can you go down, Jennifer? I don't know if I added back in on this one.
Holy Jesus.
All right, go back up, please.
Yeah.
All right, so the courthouse camera system's not in here, so I'll take the opportunity to talk about that as well. The question is, do you want to spend any money? Some of the things I think can wait. You go down the list there. Doors, that's kind of, I mean, you make the call on that. The door opens and closes, I believe it's good. But acoustic tiles, it's showing 18 years left on that. Prep and painting, sure, that's probably something you want to do in the near future. The windows.
What are we supposed to do with this here? And why is this? I mean, if you look behind where all the clerks sit in the area,
In Lita's office area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
you can see that these windows are fogged up. Do these highlighted values the basically 30? It's just at 38K roughly. Does that include like the labor to take them out and all?
It had a labor component in there.
Okay, so that's buying new windows and
there's an 8% inflation number that they factor in throughout their cycle as well. So,
Jonathan, what kind of fire extinguishers could cost $5,800 to replace?
what's probably not shown in there, Charlotte, is the quantity.
Yeah, it shows. It says there's 10.
That may be years of life. The only columns you have are the years.
Okay.
So you have expectancy, you have existing age, and then 6 years remaining.
What kind of fire extinguishers are they? Are they just regular fire
They're the
extinguishers?
wet chemical CO2.
$5,800.
the wet or the dry.
It just says wet chemical.
That's crazy.
It's a quant. Let me pull up that report now, because what you're not seeing is the quantity. So there's a per unit price. Give me 1 second.
What does that mean? What is it?
So if they're, let's say there's
No, not-
$200 a piece, if there's
No,
20
got
of them.
that part. Windows vinyl clad double glazed up to 15 square feet
Mhm.
replace.
So are these windows keeping the cold air out and the warm air in?
There's a gas between the two glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's all. That's why they're
broke
folded
or
up.
something.
Right.
And they're bulletproof.
Yeah, which just
Seals
adds,
are
and I'm
bulletproof?
even skeptical at that amount of money. I mean, those
Well,
are super expensive.
You know, as I look at
how
that,
many windows is this?
I mean, if it's leaking and where the air conditioner is running full blast and the heat's running full blast and it's costing a fortune, okay, let's fix it.
Hold on.
But I can tell you, when we get through
Existing age.
last night,
So, for example, it's supposed to have 20-year lifespan. Existing age is 12. You have remaining use of life 8 years.
So, Clay, I think, after we heard what we heard last night from the schools and all,
this all.
yeah, once we go through all of these,
No, that's
I think
Oh, yeah.
Jonathan can drag these
That's
to
what-
the end of the workbook.
That's
Probably.
what I've kind of started to write these out, and
Yeah.
I can't. It's real challenging for me to look at this spreadsheet and go to the next tab and keep it all straight. So I've gone through and I've laid out all the buildings in the summary page, which I'm calling. I see the total, but I've called that basically extras because that's what they are. I think we're going to have to go back through and we'll go through the whole spreadsheet, and then we need to go back through this whole list and basically say windows, as long as they're not one broken or two leaking air in a major way, then we've got to cross some of those off. The schools have a very, very, so everybody knows the schools have a very, very high number on the same things that we're talking about right now for their facilities that we do need to accommodate.
Yeah, that's real.
Jonathan, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go. We've gotten circuit court. It's basically 38K in window. It is windows. Go to War Memorial.
Okay. War Memorial, I believe it's oh no, I did not grab the windows. Okay. That's some vinyl tile. So that's replacing that. Primarily upstairs is that location.
So it's chipping and people are tripping over it.
In that kitchen area, primarily up where the extension office is, you can go see it heavily in that area. And then you have the water fountain. We can probably, I need to dig further in that just to see if it's leaking or what that is. The unit, though, the heat pump unit for that building does need some attention. So if you're going to keep anything on there, I would recommend that. Tile you can do in stages if you want. We can look at it that way. Just go a little bit at a time, or maybe go to some linoleum. But that was the $13,000 number. So not a big ticket for that building. When you look at overall for 5 years, it's $359,000 worth of stuff. So I was trying not to pull $50,000 line items for each building.
I bet you that tile's been there since I built it.
Yeah, that tile is really old. When you see VAT, I think it was VAT tile. Yeah. So
All right.
again, I try to pick some off the list that made sense that others can wait, because just for FY24 alone, it was like $63,000.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Go to social services.
Social services should be very limited. The new MOU that we'll be bringing to you as a draft shows that they will be amortizing the recent HVAC replacement, which was $80-some thousand. It will be amortized over 10 years, so you'll get roughly a $8,000 plus payment a year for that. So the items you see above is some exterior wall painting. What's that?
It's a brick building.
You have an upper part that has some paintable area, and there's a dormer. There's some repair near that dormer area. There's a couple of dormer areas. I think that may have been an old bank years ago.
I think it was.
And then there's a water heater.
Shouldn't they replace that?
We can look at that. I mean, that's part of defining what's in there, normal repairs,
And the
or
painting,
not.
I think.
They all replace it just out of us having to pay the bill.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we
So,
lost the argument.
The sidewalk pavement type,
Yeah,
I'm,
kidding.
what's that?
So we lost the argument on the HVAC
What do you mean lost the argument, sir? I'm
that
trying to,
that DSS was going to pay for all that.
what we have heard back from the state is
Well,
that
that's still in the works.
what we had heard back from the state, which is this manager out of the Richmond office, is that they had to amortize that. They do not cut a check straight for the total.
Oh, they're going to send us a check for $8,000 a year.
Each, yep, for 10 years.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. I remember that.
It's ridiculous.
We had to
So-
stroke the check.
And the side, so it's not
Where's that, John?
any pavement. The sidewalk that's coming up, if you park on the side of the building, if you think of the sidewalk in between the social services and Greg Lore's old business shop, it's that sidewalk coming up there with the railing. And it's more of, even though it's a sidewalk because it meets the asphalt, it's kind of how the curbing and the sidewalk meet.
I know it's a low ticket item, but is it bad? I mean,
They put on here, if you see in parentheses, and again, you don't have the quantity,
Per man
they
day.
have per man days. So they estimate a few man days for that. Really,
sure
that
where
little
they're
bit of
talking
repair, I just watched
I
VDOT.
mean, what do you run your total hours of labor?
Like here's the building, and we park right here, and Greg Lewis.
I don't know. I'm gonna look at. I'll go there often. I'll
Yep.
look
But I
at that.
walk it
All right.
the time.
Bill, any other ones on this
I
building?
noticed it.
We're gonna come back and we're gonna weed through a bunch of these.
And if there are some obvious ones that when we go through, I just recommend you tell me those now, but certainly we'll bring it back.
Keep walking and then
All
we'll
right.
run back, John.
Sheriff's Office, if you could, thank you. My eyes are. Sheriff's Office, as I mentioned earlier, their HVAC units need replacing. And then what was at the bottom, Jennifer? Oh, I wasn't sure. That's the largest of the 72,000, the $50,000 line item. I wasn't sure if you want to spend monies reviewing that space, meaning do we have enough space currently for the sheriff and even moving in the future? We've just said earlier, we're not looking to go to a public safety campus. Is there an addition that's warranted or needed for that facility? Years ago, and I can remember Supervisor Butler mentioned it to me about the floor can go above. And that's what this would be looking at, is meeting with the sheriff, myself, Mr. Gordon, because 911 is in there. Sheriff's Department. We have a split system unit up there. That's the one that we upsized a motor to keep it going. There was a part during the summer that half of that building was pretty humid.
If we just bought a part for it and we upsized it, does that mean that it's working well at this point?
I would call that a hope and a prayer.
That's not good.
I mean, I'm just being honest on that.
Jonathan, and about half of that building empty, or more than half?
Yes.
I don't know how
They use the primary, the front part. If you haven't been in there, I encourage you to do so. That building was renovated at one point in time, I want to say somewhere between 2009 to 2011. Actually, building and zoning were up there at one period of time, and they were moved back down. So they use a lot of just the office space up front. There are the old cells. That was a magistrate's office too at one time. So there are some holding cells and some back offices, but the front of the building is what's being used right now, Ms. Hoffman. Then we have more fire extinguishers.
Yeah, this building isn't open to the public.
No, it is not.
It's not open to the public. It's being used currently by the sheriff's office. And I'm all for fire extinguishers and signs and whatnot. But it seems like it does. It seems like we're just wasting $32.76 on something that very few people will say.
I would highly.
And we should be buying fire extinguishers in bulk. We need a bunch of them. Maybe we can get a bargain.
Yeah, this would be
Is this-
replacing fire
Is
extinguishers.
this staff putting the fire extinguishers in? And I mean, I
Yeah.
don't want to.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. Because
This
you
is the
either
cost of
have
materials.
this is the cost on that. You would either have a cabinet like is on.
Look, I've worked for government. That's yeah.
You either have a cabinet like you have on the wall there, Supervisor Dawson, or there would already be a bracket mounted. So you would
You'd be
just
surprised
take it out,
what
put it in.
governments Pay people to come in and do.
Yeah, we're not doing that. Now
Okay.
there is services that come out and they check that, as you well know.
Okay.
But other than that, we would be purchasing and we would be hanging the new fire extinguisher and disposing properly of the old. The lighting signs, I'm not an attorney, but
If it's there, it's supposed to work according to fire code.
thank you.
They're
So
gonna have to.
I would just say that we can, look at what's there. If it warrants an upgrade, certainly it makes sense to go to LED.
I ain't saying throw money away, but I'm just saying.
Right.
we have
So that's why
responsibility
I
at some
grabbed
point.
those, sir. It wasn't a. I just think they're necessary items. 8,400 is
I
roughly.
know.
But I mean, I get it. It does all add up.
Oh, yeah, go ahead to your next one.
The Estes House, which is the Commonwealth Attorney's building.
I'm going backwards on you, John.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
Yep, that's fine.
We skipped over for the courthouse. The camera price was not included.
So the camera price, I want to talk to you about the camera.
Go ahead.
The system in there is working now. The big cost of upgrading or replacing is the operative word, that system when it reaches end of life, which it's nearing. Our current contractor who maintains the cameras and our badge system for our cards and all that has said it's towards the end of life. It's a coax system. So any new system they would upgrade and all that's pulled out. They don't deal with the coaxial. We only have one estimate, and I didn't push forward with any additional because I really wasn't going to add it for this year. But it's about $10,000 was the number quoted to us, and that was just going on the lower side. If you went with some of the newer camera that has face recognition and all that, we did get that quoted. I think that adds like another 20 to 30,000, primarily because you got to buy. The camera itself is the server versus having one server with all these cameras. Everything lives in that camera and it's cloud based. So you have two prices. You have going back to similar to what we have in this building, but multiply the number of cameras. That's about 110,000. And then if you step up to what like the schools have with the Vercada, I think is the name of that system, you're looking about another $30,000 above
All right. So let's use the low number. The 110 for the courthouse.
And that was installed,
all
Mr.
right.
Chairman.
All right. You're recommending holding on that.
Holding on that, I think we need to bring in some additional vendors. Yes, but I have not put it in there. We might want to go ahead and add a line that says security cameras.
And then the other one that is, and the reason I went backwards, the Estes house they want to do cameras on it. It does not have cameras at this point.
It has this security alarm that was an addition this year. We are also looking at alternative solutions for that.
How much is that right now? Rough.
The estimate for 8 cameras, I think, was like 28. So we are talking with other vendors right now. And that's not the cloud-based cameras. That's looking at something like we have in this facility, sir. And I'll be happy to show you all that system one day when you're in the facility. Yes, please. If you can just list the amount but not highlight it. 110,000.
All
Well,
right.
I think, isn't that already on line 45?
No,
That's different. That's not the same thing.
hold on one second. Supervisor Yao, and I will tell you if that's the same.
Yeah, line 45 says security / surveillance system, full system upgrade.
Are you back on courthouse?
Yeah.
All right.
I'll check on that and report back to you because there's different security levels. I want to make sure this doesn't tie into our security system, which everything from elevators to doors, some of the private closets that have sensitive things may be part of that. So let me get further detail on that.
All right.
Supervisor, I'll bring that back to you.
All right.
So as an extra on your final page, put Estes cameras at 28K. So that we keep scope.
Well, let me ask you, Mr. Chairman, on the Estes house. We have funding there. You put roughly, I think it was 33,000 in last year's budget for security upgrades. And that was looking at a security vestibule and some of this other stuff. And it turns out after we got the pricing and we talked with the Commonwealth's Attorney's Office and IT facilities, it was decided not to do a lot of those updates. So we have some monies remaining out of that 33,000 that we may be able to implement cameras there now out of FY23 versus putting that in FY24 in the future. So if the board's fine with that approach, we would handle that in this existing budget year.
All good with that. All right. Then cross that off the extra list, do it, and move on. But get some more competitive pricing.
We are doing that now. Yes, sir.
All right, back to Estes. You've got some stair work. You got water heater at 1170, and then you've got more of these
Emergency lighting.
Apparently, we've got to do a better job with keeping these things up. All right, what's next?
All right, next is the transfer station. This was alarming me because I didn't have a lot of history on this. What you see in line 2, the exterior walls, and that's your tipping floor, they call that. And that's $42,000, almost $43,000. The roofing on that building is the next item, and then there's that. I guess you could say the ceiling side of that transfer station is the third highlighted item. So you're almost at 50K just for that. The scales have on here for replacement. If you scroll down, that's the big ticket item. So and that's where you run you certify what goes in and comes out. That's what you're basing your contract price, not only for what you charge a commercial hauler, but also what we pay, based on tonnage leaving is based off those scales.
You've got 46,956 in the tipping floor and the roofing. Is that right? 47K.
Yes.
Then you've got the ceiling finishes and gypsum for 2,600. Where is that?
So when you think of the tipping floor or the transfer station building, you've got the metal roofing on top, but then there's the ceiling part of it is the what they call the gypsum board plaster, is what they have it listed as. And I'll bring up that report now.
You got a picture for that?
Hold on one second, sir.
I'm glad to see that the exterior walls are insulated. I wouldn't want to get cold or hot in there.
And I don't know why it needs a gypsum ceiling either. It's a steel structure. I mean, we are opulent at our transfer station.
And what's not shown on there, you had about a $9,000 to $10,000 unexpected occurrence when the sewer pump failed out there, and we found that sewer pump lived underneath of the trailer, the scale house. That was interesting. So we've done some repairs already this year. I will look for that picture now, Mr. Chairman.
Why? And I understand the importance of scales. Why do we need to replace a set of scales? What is wearing out on those scales? Because they can replace load bars, they can replace all the mechanisms to make it work. I mean, the main piece you're paying for there is the actual steel structure.
Hold on one second. I'm getting to that. They don't have a fairly good picture. I can show you the transfer station.
See the real
Calibrated.
They have it. This is what they've listed here: interior painted gypsum board. But if you go up, this is the.
No, we don't.
By law or just it's just a good
I
thing
just-
to do.
I know.
Yeah, we had them look at it because the walls are.
The walls, the roof maybe. But, all right, go to the scales. The gypsum looks like it's above the steel wrap, like below the roofing material, but it goes roofing material, gypsum, and then steel wrap.
Why is it?
I don't think so. I don't see why we need
I can't think
that.
why
And
you
I
would either.
would hope that we get rid of the insulation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if they insulate. You collect. There's a floor collector there. I don't know if they're doing something. If water or something's held in there, there is a yard hydrant, but you can shut those off during the winter. Bottom line is, am I hearing, sir, that the board would like to expend some monies
Yes.
at least repairing the
Do
transfer
we need to
station?
replace the roof. You don't think the roof?
The roof, yes,
Yeah.
but not the gypsum.
No,
Yeah,
no.
it's
The
crazy.
roof, it
And the
looks like we got
walls.
some roof problems, we got some wall issues. It shouldn't have anything to do with the steel substructure. So it should just be put corrugated roofing on it on all sides basically and move on with it. And don't insulate it. What do they say about the scales?
I'm going
Yeah,
to-
I know.
apologize.
You're doing that.
Yeah, when we went to the farmers markets for 25 years,
Oh, here
we
we
in the
go.
middle of a market, and some USDA guy would come by with his little satchel full of weights and test their scales.
We have to go out twice a year.
Yeah.
Those facilities. And it's
Twice a year.
twice a year. That's based on package and stock.
All right, I think
But
it's right here.
you can replace all the components pretty easily.
And you got manure getting in your scales, huh?
And I've replaced both. And the lightning is awful hard on scales.
I might have to make a note to come back on the scales.
All right, we'll come back on
Yes,
scales.
sir. I've
87K
that's
is a
fine.
lot of money. We need to explore that before we just go down the path and spend it.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
All right, floor house.
Floor house, I believe I had minimum there. So there's some more tile there that is recommended to be replaced. So we have that listed. There's a water heater there as well. And the panel, it's working. So I guess I would lean on Supervisor Dawson to give feedback on that. I don't know the age. Well, it says the age of that panel is 28 years. They recommend replacing. Can that go beyond, or is that like a standard where you should?
Unless it's a Federal Pacific, I'd leave it alone.
All right. So let's take off the 2,600. Thank you, sir. The $2,600 for the replacement of the panel.
So are you removing it or moving it to an out year? Or just on that one, you could just remove it.
I mean, I'd have to physically put my.
Unhighlighted.
Normally,
Yeah.
If it's not a Federal
Yes.
Pacific laws,
And if you change,
they're-
yeah.
the license-
Yep.
Oh,
If it's just a, it's whatever the-
So is that just like a recommendation? But they can go longer, is
I've
what?
seen them in there 50, 60 years.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. So you have tile and you have the water heater, sir, for a new total of 5,500. So minimal there.
The majority of that house is wood floors.
You got the area
got
in
the
the
back
back.
and the back
You
and-
got where, let's see.
Upstairs is even wood floors.
Yeah, you've got the bathroom. I want to say they put linoleum down. It's primarily that back area where Jerry Beyond and that. I know that's vinyl.
mhm.
I'm telling you, I'm not, and it's a low dollar item, but we're knocking, I mean, you can knock a bunch off. I don't think we should be playing with flooring in the floor house. And I think that, and doesn't PRA have a line item for maintenance?
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask Jennifer this before. Is Jennifer, in the accounting world, a lot of this stuff is not capital improvements, but I mean, we're having to look at this stuff whether it end up getting capitalized or just expense. It's got to go somewhere. We'd just be squeezing the balloon; it would go somewhere else. But yeah, for this, the flooring. Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with the flooring in that house right now at all.
That's exactly. So let's remove the flooring component. Let's remove the distribution panel, unless there's something that we're missing.
Right.
And we'll do the water heater,
Okay.
which we also should buy in bulk. It looks like we need a bunch of
Or
those.
gone. Yeah. Yes.
All right, Red Barn. This is going to be good. Gosh. Yeah, Red Barn. Go ahead, Jonathan. Tell us.
Yeah. Actually, I had PRA was over here. We appreciate their help. They were helping facilities relocate IT, and I've talked with Mr. Carpenter about this item. If you can bring up the Red Barn, please. Okay, it is there. So, as you can see, they have just for FY24 about $211,000 for that. It's my understanding that for the roof, I think PRA is talking with a vendor that may offer some very good attractive pricing, which would be a lot less than what's up there. I guess the question is, what do you want to do with the barn? And I only highlighted one item, was the structure, and that's just based on the report. I did not say replace the roof, and it sounds like I think Cardi, are you tracking like 15 or 20,000 for the roof? Jerry mentioned something about PRA had 15 or
No,
20,000.
It wasn't even the whole
13.
roof. It's apparently just one of the sides.
Yeah.
We talked about this at the last. Apparently, the top part is new and good. One side
Yeah.
has got problems.
So again, I just look at it. If it's something we own, what do you want to do with it? If there are concerns, when I say there, it's in the report for line 8 that I've highlighted. I can send you all the report, but
So $9,100 for a
you would basically
additional report?
bring a P in there to look at that,
Oh,
the structure, for the integrity of it. There's
exactly.
It's a barn. It's an old timey barn that's in a lot of old timey pictures, which we all value.
I'm going to bring up the
They
report.
put doors on it. That's got to add something to the structural integrity.
I think it's page 5. The concern is what they put in here in this report: deteriorated and rotten structural members, but they go in further and say, and disconnected structural members.
So they already know what the engineer report's going to say.
Sounds like a lot of barns I know of. What do you want to do? What do you want to do, Jim?
Well, I think we ought to spend the entire amount and just fix it back up.
Absolutely.
What kind of barn could you build for?
I disagree
So-
with you, Jim.
What kind of barn could you build for $211,000?
A lot of barns.
Yeah,
So
you know what? Leave it alone. It wouldn't hurt if if I were really worried about it. If people were around there, have one of the building officials go out and say, "Hey, take a look at it and say, well, there
It's
might,
dangerous.
yeah, it's dangerous." But no, we don't need to be spending.
Or
that.
your equipment is getting ruined because it's getting
Yeah.
rained
The
on.
equipment's not. It's an old barn. They keep doing patches. Apparently, the roof they're doing just a piece of it on. It shows $87,000 in roofing on this report. Which
No way.
Of course.
No way.
Let's let that one go to the side. I really do. I don't see any reason to spend $9,100 on that barn. They've been improving it for multiple years. It is an old barn. What else you got? And the equipment is staying somewhat dry.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be all right.
Good arbitrary price.
So I've got a question on the fire extinguishers. You got my wheels turning, Clay. Can we explore the cost to refill them? I was looking up to see if it is a requirement to replace them after 10 years, but you can also refill them. If that's cheaper, then just have a company come in and refill them if that's a requirement.
We had a good company out of Colca Petroleum
Yeah,
that did ours at McLean,
Happy.
and
They refilled.
yeah.
they refilled some, and some you have to
They
replace
refill,
after.
recertify.
Yeah,
That's what
I can
It might
get-
be cheaper
I
than
can get
buying
John
all
that.
new.
I can get you that information if you want.
yes, please.
Didn't know that was an option. There you go. That's pretty good. All right, so knock the barn off. We'll
All right,
try
so
to figure some
off.
plans with the barn.
Okay.
414, Jonathan.
All right. That's the facility we're in now. That's the only item, and I have it highlighted, but the only expenditure. And we'll have to price this out. So granted, when you're going through this, we're taking their numbers. But the vapor barrier is really non-existent under this building. They did a lot of work on this building. That was not one area that was designated for them to do. And that's what came back in the report. Everything else is fairly new. We did keep some of the components, like some of the duct work that was existing when they were putting in the new HVAC systems in this facility. But that's what they had in the report for the vapor barrier.
So this would entail digging out from around that whole thing and putting
You
the vapor
basically
barrier.
should be able to just you roll that stuff, you overlay in the ground. I mean, under the crawl space. So you go around the back of this building is where access, and this goes in your crawl space.
Is there crawl space under us here?
I don't know how far it goes back. I haven't crawled
No,
yet.
neither have I.
Yeah, I believe it. I know it goes as far as that break room. How far down this way? You do have plumbing fixtures, so I'm sure it goes down that far. But that's the only cost. It is a hefty cost, but yeah, and even I mean, this building, what 1960 something.
No,
So
it's I'm glad that we did this building and we did it on the hill. I think it's given us a local government complex without having to build all new out at Hoover Ridge. And I think it's pretty good. The picture that comes into my head is just a plastic lining that lays on the dirt underneath the building, and it's 24 115 just seems expensive for somebody maybe two people dragging this and then maybe I don't know stapling it down or something some way to keep it from moving around, I guess. It just seems like a high price.
Is it we can look at, to get some cost comparison? Is it at least something that you want to replace as the barrier? Is the vapor barrier?
It's no way it's 24,000.
Right.
But you know what
But
I'm,
we
what
leave
I'm
it on
thinking
there.
it looks like. I mean,
that's all it is plastic laid on the ground.
I've had to do this recently to a home, and the expense was high, and here's why. They also recommend, and not necessarily do you have to have it, but one of those machines that they install to keep the moisture out from underneath the crawl space. So that mechanical part is a part of the expense that could be in here. We'd have to look. So they put that plastic all the way up the sides of the block and the bottom, and then they put a piece of machinery in there to dehumidify.
permanent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
All right, we need to
Good,
look
thank you.
into this. We think the number may be incorrect. Is that a right way to look at it?
We hope it is.
We'll
Good.
see.
Yes.
All right, look into it. All right, 410. We're doing good on this one.
All right. 410 is
Perfect.
the old health department. So I believe that should have. I don't think there's anything listed there. Can you go down to the bottom?
You're
Zippy.
good. You're zero.
Yep. So we're zero there. There's a future cost. Can we see what that future cost is? That's 16. All right. So they're looking at systems down there. So we have some time to look into that because those obviously didn't get replaced. All right. Kriegersville, is that what you had said? $0 on
Zero.
that.
The only one that just needs to be, and I'm with the Bureau Veritas, with using them, we are constantly updating this to make it better. And we're pulling the swings and all the stuff out of there.
I'm
Are
not.
we going to remove that as not just a value item, but since we are going to imminently,
We can. I wouldn't put that in there. Our removal costs would be our facilities, our guys, labor force going out there with shovels or chainsaws or
That's correct.
whatever they need to do. The main thing, Mr. Chairman, is I don't have any monies programmed in. If you're looking to replace any equipment, I did not factor that in. That's what they have up there is replacing.
I think that we've got safety issues with and we all played on them. We had a good time when we did it. We all got hurt, and look at where we got us. Fine. The other side of this is that we do need to remove them based on the liability that goes with it. The side that we could entertain potentially moving forward is if somebody was to donate or really valued it up there and said, we really want to donate the money to put in new stuff. I think that's something I would at least listen to. And we'll see how that all plays out. But on the existing stuff, it's a liability.
Otherwise, we're concentrating on the playgrounds at Hoover Ridge, which
That's
is
correct.
centrally located
Absolutely.
in the entire county. Right?
Absolutely.
Compliant playgrounds today are out of sight.
Oh, no
Yeah,
kidding.
there's inspection certifications required.
We've been pricing the components that we haven't really decided on at Hoover Ridge. The surface alone is like $200,000. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, just absolutely incredible. Is it 200 or is it 87?
So let me say before I forget it, you know, is, you know, I think we need to get the school CIP stuff looked at real heavily, and then circle back on a lot of this stuff. From just what I've seen and heard, um, I don't know. Is the timing on that going to work for us?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, please.
it should. The way we laid it out yesterday, and I've got notes. I can hit them real quick if y'all
Yeah.
want to hear them. The way we laid out, we normally meet once a month. There are two items. There is some drainage at the high school and the middle school that needs investigation. They tried to fix it themselves. They brought in a contractor to fix. They need to run they're going to meet with their engineer, and then they're going to run a camera down it to try to assess. And that hopefully is something minimal. Potentially, it could be something very, very expensive. The other item is at Waverly Yao, there is a plumbing issue. They've already replaced a sewer pump for $25K. We're trying to figure out and get somebody in there immediately, and that's Miss Dr. Timmons. What we've done is we've set up the next meeting for 3 weeks, which puts it in front a week ahead of where we would talk to the schools about CIP jointly. There is a potential if Dr. Timmons can get it done faster, then we may meet in 2 weeks, and then we'll have more time to talk about it through the budgets, our budget meetings. Right now, they have high school boilers that potentially could cost somewhere in between 2 and 300K that need to be replaced, that they fixed but need to be replaced. They're bad way. Dr. Timmons is talking to the manufacturer, and maybe there is something, since they have a much longer life expectancy and they've failed at this point, which they've deemed as manufacturer fail. There may be some kind of savings on that.
But yeah, but like the bottom line is, when you've got boilers split open and it's spewing gases and stuff
You gotta
into the
replace
school, we can't have it, right? So
You've got air handlers. There's on Waverly Yao.
don't even say it.
I
Hang
know. I'm terrified. At Waverly Yao, there's 4 air handlers that bring fresh air into the building. They've been operating on one for a year now. And these are rough numbers. It's looking like that could cost $800 to $1 million to replace. And on top of that, there is a high school heat wheel, which apparently does something with the HVAC system. He told us it brings air in and warms things up or cools them down or something, and that costs $65K. With just the boilers, the air handlers, on the heat wheel, we're already at like 1 point. We're on the high side. On the high side, we're at 1.3 plus. The drainage issues, he'll do a fantastic job. A ton of confidence in Dr. Timmons. Ton of confidence. But the other items we need to know before we can kind of move forward. And I do think
Yeah, that and the $400,000 paving that we were going to do at primary school is now dropped off the map.
the only one that 100%. It can't be a priority when you've got these other things that we need to address immediately so that we can keep the facilities of education going in the right direction. The other one that was brought up at the CIP meeting, and we said go ahead and do it, is it Gavin that applies, Jonathan? Gavin applies for a full generator for the high school that is grant funded. Our portion would be 34%. It's a $151,000 generator. It looks like, and our portion would be $51,340. We said go ahead and apply for it. Even if we were to not engage with the grant, it's conveyed that it won't look negatively upon us. It may just not be the time, but we go ahead and apply and see what happens. And that would give us a full emergency shelter for that can do everything in the case of a really bad deal. Right now, we use the fire hall. It's fantastic in every way. If we had something bigger, it could be bad. But there are these huge outlying issues in the schools. And they're addressing them appropriately, but we've got to figure that out first. That's going to put a damper on everything, right? That's a real bummer.
Well, Clay, let me ask you this. Let's assume that we get in a situation where this is worst case scenario, $1.5 million probably. What are really our options? Can we go? Would we? I hate this, but would we have to go out and borrow money and just cover that versus trying? I don't want to.
I think that's a piece of it. I think we asked that last night, which is we were to go to a financial institution for something. Right now, the schools are turning back in. The schools have $800K that can go to some of this. It's undesignated at this point. Is that Esther, Jonathan?
There were school construction funds. There was a different funding stream, about a $1.4 million funding stream for the schools for construction purposes. I think they've expended $600,000, so they have $800,000 remaining that could be put towards those type of projects. To get to your question, Mr. Jewett, and I'll ask Jennifer to chime in. How I answered that to the chairman last night, it's too early to tell. So yeah, we have a healthy fund balance. My approach is don't rob the cookie jar just because it has cookies, but let's see what is the total amount, because we know there's going to be normal operating request increases that we'll see within, whether it's outside agencies or departments that you have to deal with as a whole, which is still looking at, how are you going to fund that? And then there's the capital portion. So I think it's too early to tell. We know that there's a lot of monies that's going to move out of the fund balance for particular projects. You already have debt service funding for this the radio project, so that'll be pulling out about 3.3, 3.5 remaining. ARPA funds around 2.5 million. That is strictly for broadband, plus the 400,000. I believe the board committed via vote when Chantel pulled out, and that was added to the Etland area for broadband. So we know those money moving forward. These newer projects for the school, coupled with what we presented to you today, the 1.1, it's wherever that number shakes out respectively if the board decides. Then I think we look at it as a total, and Jennifer and I can look at our fund balance policies. If you take that amount of monies out of fund balance, what does that mean? Are we meeting that 14% threshold? So your thoughts?
I'd also like to recommend that we kind of do a scenario planning and cash flow analysis. In other words, we know we have a worst case scenario in year 2 from now, it could be the 1.5 or whatever. And we look at year by year the potential scenarios of cash that are needed, and we can do some planning with fund balance and other metrics that we know we have from year to year and see where the cash flow lands. I mean, that's one way to look at this, is just kind of basically do a cash flow forecast for the county.
To
Assuming
see
those
if we
items.
need to borrow.
Yeah, absolutely. See how it looks.
Or the other bad word.
The monies that you described, now they're in fund balance, but isn't that the restricted portion of the fund balance?
I believe so. If not, it should be.
Because I'm concerned about our unrestricted fund balance.
Yeah. But to answer your question, I think it's kind of pieces of it. I mean, the policy going back, and we've kind of stopped using it, and we have been working with the schools on CIP for a long time now. Before, like, it would have been like maybe my first two years on the board, and before that, they had set up basically, and I don't think it was a written contract, but just kind of a way to kind of, to some extent, incentivize the schools to save money, which they always have done, and they're responsible about it. Anything that they turn back into the county, they've asked over time to, if that quantity of money can go to CIP. Now, and they ask already if they can move some of this into the CIP. I think it's 171, wasn't it? Was part of the return from last year. And the comment is, well, yeah, that's great. We do need that to go into CIP, but there's the 171 from the turnover last year, the 800 that he was talking about. So there you're up in, you're close to $1 million, but there's some mechanisms in place to be able to handle it. And the undesignated fund balance, which we do use as a cushion, and we been fairly conservative on going about. What we will do also start with the beginning appropriation, which we've used as a tool to balance the budget, which we used less last year than any other year. I think Ms. Warren's comments are exactly. I mean, we just kind of have to see when some of these numbers come in and see what the total value, and then start analyzing what avenue we have to go down to fund.
So, Mr. Chairman, just a quick note on the financial statements for at the end of FY22. Our balance sheet shows restricted as 1.2 million and unrestricted at 19.1
What page are
million.
you on?
13, Exhibit 1. And we can dig in more on this.
I think we're going to have to dig in to see, other restricted, those two projects that we specified, the broadband and the radio project. How much of that is in that restricted or unrestricted?
There is one. Let me find the page.
So I think to give you a fair answer on that, Mr. Jewett, we need to bring that back to you.
These are major things that we have to address. We just got to figure out the right way to go about it in a responsible way for Madison County.
But now that we've had this little discussion, now going back through this, it's going to change some attitudes, isn't it?
Going through today, though,
Yeah.
we've still got a handful. Boy, we've got a couple more items to go through off of this spreadsheet. I think we can run through and knock off some real quick, easy items, which we've already done on some, and I got some other ones that we just walk through real quick. But then we're going to have to come back and revisit this modified document at least one more time, if not 2 or 3 more times, if you want to, based on what the schools need.
Yes.
That's just what it is.
This was good work here, Jonathan. That's a lot of work. Who put all this together?
It's a combination. I mean, you paid the money, right, for the Bureau Veritas. We had to pull the information out and really kind of decide on what we can even, I guess you could say, look you in the face and recommend versus some of the items up here. But so a team effort, but we also just really needed guidance. You're seeing these numbers. This is a schedule that did not exist. I mean, I can show you the Crabtree and Rollbar study. That was a percentage. It was an index. It did not have this breakout. So at least know,
Well, this is better.
what kind of costs coming down the pike. So it even goes further to Supervisor Jewett's question. We can look at right now our cash flow, but you have all these other items on the book, potential expenses. How do you balance that out? So I think that's a process. We're trying to capture and identify what we can do right now. But at some point, we're going to have to do that similar analysis on that, all those future funding needs, because your financial policies, which will be covered, I think we said later now, March 2nd, there is a reference in there, and I want to say it's about a 2.5% factor of our facilities. I don't know if we've really been budgeting for that, which should allow you to pull your funds and commit for a certain percentage for these maintenance and upkeeps. So I think it's a good exercise to see it. You all can go through and we'll bring it back, chop it up, add whatever you like to do. But collectively, we need the schools list. I understand. I think they have a public hearing February the 13th for their budget, which should have some capital in there, I would imagine. I've asked them to provide me versions of the budget, kind of in real time as they're going through it, because we have a tight deadline. Our meeting with the schools on the budget is March 9th. We have to have our packet, our advertising ready to go to the paper by March 10th. So we can advertise in the paper for March 16th, and then you have your public hearing on March 28th. So We'll get it done. That's not what I'm saying, but it's a tight window. So when we have their list, we'll combine it with our list, and you all can decide. Mr. Chairman, there was one project that's not on here that probably should come up today, and you all can let me know if you have thoughts today or at a future CIP discussion. We have the estimates for the Hoover Ridge Outdoor Recreation Center. I think, Mr. Chairman, we're at what, about 3.4 million for that. That project is not currently in your CIP. So the way I'm tracking steps is step one, do you want to see that project in your CIP, 5-year, 10-year, whatever outlook? That's step one. Step two is if your answer is yes, add it to the CIP, then what year and what levels do you want to fund it? That PER, it's based on phasing. Phase one would be engineering, designing, and doing the earthwork. And then 2 and 3 is when you start putting in the equipment and things that would go out there, such as roller hockey and so forth. So that is not on this list. I know Parks and Recs has asked for it to be some level of commitment by this board. So I will need some direction, whether it's today or you want to think on it and come back if that's a project you want to see put in your CIP.
All right. We all know about this project and probably have very similar comments about this project. I do think that we should add it to the list. At this time, I don't think we put any dollar value on it, and I don't think we put any timetable on it. I think we're way too early in the budget process with some very, very large outlying numbers. And we'll get to it soon.
Well, I would just add, okay, yeah, let's keep it hanging out there, because without some commitment from us, they're going to have a tough time fundraising, and they're planning on doing a lot of fundraising.
And they already are. They already are. They've raised their total balance. They're over 100K now on this $3.4 million facility. The comment continued, and they've got some larger donors that are just kind of waiting to make sure that waiting to see if we're going to endorse this. The comment continual that we've made about this is they want to do the majority of it based on fundraising and private donors. We've all known that going down this path, the county is going to have some skin in the game. Even if we were to put some making it up, if we were to put 100K down, that still puts us some skin in the game. That's a more manageable number. But I don't think it's even responsible to say 100K today. Right. I think we're way out of order talking about a great project. A great project can benefit a lot of people. But I just don't think today we can put a number on it responsibly in any way. I do think we should add it to the list. I think it is important. But I mean, that's just what it is. I think we've got another 2 months of meetings every Thursday. We're all going to love each other by the end of this, and we'll see if we can come back to it. We know we're going to have to hit this list a couple more times. We haven't talked about any staffing, department requests, really any of that. We're just too early. It's not possible to go down that path at this point. All right, Kemper Mansion's at 0. And thank you for bringing it up. We need to add it on there.
So we'll add a tab for Hoover Ridge. We won't have any FY24 future funding. We can capture the estimated project cost and just leave it there. What I'm hearing is, eventually you'll go through the CIP list to determine a final list. And if that makes the cut, it'll be in there either for a 0 amount or some type of amount that the board decides.
There you go. Fine. Everybody good? All right. Let's go to Kemper Mansion doesn't have anything.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to the summaries. I want to go to what I'm going to call the extras, and that's Sheriff Department. is 4 vehicles where he's at this year, Jonathan?
Yes.
We have to. There's. I mean, I don't know what a better way to say it. We have to do
That replacement
Absolutely.
plan for years.
I mean, if we don't replace them, it's worse. It is far worse. I don't know anything about tasers. Party, what do
So
you know about tasers?
Tasers
It
for
hurts.
tasers, Mr. Chairman.
Fire extinguisher.
Yes, sir.
Taser, Mr. Chairman, is like some other items that our sheriff's department need, like bulletproof vests. So those are replacing these every so many years. So that's for the tasers. Now, forgive me, I don't remember those years of cycles, but that's why you have this request for tasers this year.
All right, so we're going to weed into. Well, he's coming to see us. I think they're watching us right now. We'll talk to him about tasers. Haven't ever talked about those before. AEDs. What do you want to do?
Well, I think the rescue squad, the old rescue squad's been giving them away left and right, huh? Why don't they?
They gave away dozens and dozens and dozens to somebody, with churches and different places.
Why don't they give a few more away?
Yeah.
I'd strike those.
I agree.
All right.
I don't know. What do y'all think?
Well, they want to put them in their cars?
Yes.
There's a
So
handful of
yes, I will say. How do I say this? He didn't say not to say it, but some of the top officials out there don't have these. They are in some deputy vehicles. One of these, I don't know how many is required in a building. I know there's some definition or determinants for that, but the sheriff's office currently does not have one in their building. So I know that's reflected in that number. As far as the total number, we can get that from them. I think they're roughly 2 to 2,500 a piece. So you can see the math. It's probably for 10. It's what that number represents as a quantity. But we're happy whatever direction you give, we'll communicate that
The
back.
sheriff's office certainly should have an AED.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how we missed that one.
Yes, is it in there in their summary? Thank you. Yes, can you bring up that summary? Thank you, Jim.
All right.
It's already in their budget.
Well, it's in there, but the summary
Oh.
it gives the explanation of that item.
All right. Let's well, Miss Warren's figuring out about the AEDs. We know for emergency management, we already have the sheriff's office has generously let us use. We're knocking the drone off. There's a grant for $7,500. How much is that going down to? You got any idea, Jonathan?
The grant monies is there, so that number won't change. It's just how much of that.
How much does it cost to stop the bleed training?
Did he list that? Did Gavin list the stop the bleed cost? Because they were combined. So if you're getting rid of the drone, it may fully fund the stop the bleed.
All right.
They just outfitted the school, so this would be looking at outfitting the county
Going down. All right.
emergency management.
All right.
And I'm sorry if you just give us a
No,
minute,
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
pull it up.
We're going. I got questions on the next two as well.
If you want to ask, maybe I can answer
all right.
the next one.
The $375,000 for the bidirectional amplifiers in the schools.
Yes,
We
sir.
know we're going through a major upgrade in our radio systems. And, are we sure we still need the bidirectional amplifiers?
I'm told by our leading expert in this is Mr. Gordon,
Yeah.
and yes, we can give you further breakdown of the quantity and the locations. I don't know right off the hand if that represents all schools need to replace or just some.
And this one included in the whole radio project.
I understand the answer is no. But we can run some numbers hopefully in the near future on our radio, moving that site to see if there's any cost savings there that could be applied towards that, Mr. Chairman.
What about the fire and EMS paging system?
That I'm saying remove. That's not in your FY24. That was something that they had
All right.
said for
It's
FY25.
Perfect. What?
That was something that they had suggested for FY25, which is next year, not this budget we're working on now. So we won't even have that in our totals. We put it down because it was in their request.
All right. So pull the 200 off of the paging.
You know, both of those are in FY25.
Yeah, so it's not in the calculus
Not in their
for.
numbers.
Yes, sir. But we will remove that. That way there is no confusion. We'll remove that whole FY25.
All right. And then the Tyler system, phase 2 and phase 3.
Yes, that is extra. You want to go into? I know we got you surfing through that. I apologize.
So for Tyler, that's to implement the payroll HR module, because right now our HR person, Tilly, is having to run everything in RDA still, and then we're having to import through journals, and it's a lot of extra work on her side and not very clean. So that's for payroll module. So everything would run through Tyler, and then building and zoning. What's the other? Building and zoning. They're still using RDA as well. So those two modules would connect everything. Right now, we just have the full financials package.
But that's that one's contractually obligated at this point.
We have not. We've gotten
We haven't-
estimates.
Yeah, we have
But-
estimates.
But you're talking about, we've paid for the software. We just now are paying for the implementation of this software.
Yeah,
right?
I've got the breakdown.
I mean, so like Bobby Fry's time, as an example, or am I wrong?
So here's the breakdown that I came up with for us. We've got phase 2, a 6 to 9 month timeline for implementation. These are hours estimated for consultants, I guess. Yeah, and their implementation team. And then this is the actual recommended implementing HR and talent management and payroll with ESS first. This is, I guess these are the modules.
Okay, so I apologize. I have not attended a Thursday morning update for quite a while now. So we have blown, I mean, those hours were in our original contract, but we've gone through those.
Correct. And so it's my understanding that there is nothing, we don't have an obligation for any of these hours we've got on the screen here as estimated. It's just, I asked Tyler, I said, well, I need a firm estimate to be able to present to our Board of Supervisors for phase 2 and 3. And I received, this is the estimated number of hours they think it will take. And I've added in consultants' time for Eric Morrow and some of the others that we might want to use as well.
So I just like to add to that. This project's been around for at least 2 years.
Yep.
So that's kind of where you go through transitions. This project was supposed to be, we thought, within a year. So those numbers that we had, we burned through it for that reason, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's understandable. We're a small operation, and when you've got to do double work, when you got to put everything through the current system and then transfer it over, and then you're trying to learn and train and all that stuff. I mean, I get it.
We've already invested a bunch into this.
Yeah.
There's no play here. It's pay the money. Let's get this thing
This
going.
gets us to the
Hopefully
finish
we'll
line.
Get out of RDA. All right. Does anybody have anything else on any of the extras?
And what I have on the screen now is a breakdown for you on emergency management. If you wanted to see the difference in the prices between the drone, stop the bleed kits.
Stop bleed 48,1762.
Yeah, so that's request 3. I say we keep request 1 and 2, we're moving away from. request one was if we were going to outfit a trailer to, if you had to go deploy large operation, cots, blankets, and all that. That's not even in your number. So if you'd like to consider I'm sorry, I'm off mic. If you'd like to consider the Stop the Bleed kits, then we would put that number in there, and that would be your total. But we're scrapping the drone.
Everybody okay with the Stop the Bleed?
What kind of equipment's needed? I thought Gavin was doing the training on this. What kind of equipment do you need?
For Stop the Bleed kit,
Yeah.
it's an actual tourniquet kit.
Yeah, I know what it is, but it says Stop the Bleed training equipment. What kind of equipment's needed for training?
It's my understanding he does the training and we buy the equipment. So I don't. Yeah, I'm trying to read that description.
Yeah, training equipment. I mean, that's not like the kits. That's like for
The
equipment
kit is
for
what
training.
you use yourself.
I think that he has in his submission a proposed price breakdown as well.
I don't think that's a capital item anyway. If he wants to include
No.
it in
Just put it in his
that's not a
operation.
capital
So
item. Good Lord.
all right.
Pull the stop. I think the Stop the Bleed's the same dang thing. That's his budget item deal.
Yeah.
As long
He's
as
got a grant for that. Okay.
Well, he has a grant.
All right. So we'll pull it out of capital. We'll put it in operational, and we can consider it at that time when reviewing the
Yes.
operational budget.
all right, y'all want to walk through this list real quick and knock out a handful of things. Animal shelter. I will donate a leg for a utility sink. I have one. So I think we get rid of the sink for $1170. We do the HVAC that they have totaled at $42K, and we buy fire extinguishers and the signs. And Jonathan or somebody is going to look into refilling these things if that's
Yep.
an option.
Yes, sir.
Arcade. It looks like we're going to go down the disposal path. We'll see if we can sell it, maybe. Circuit
See what-
court. We're going to investigate the windows, but probably not going to do them this fiscal year. The War Memorial. We've got tiling, we've got fountain, and we've got a bunch in HVAC. Do we want to knock any of those? We're going to leave it.
Yeah, I'd get rid of the tiling.
All right, get rid of the tiling. Is everybody okay with that one?
Drinking fountain. Who drinks town water? Yuck.
All right.
The people that
I
live
add
in
it to
town.
my coffee every
Do
day
you?
here in the kitchen.
Yeah, see, exactly.
It's like you might as well be drinking out of a swimming pool. Oh, that's RSA. I'm on that board.
No, exactly. Do
Never mind. It's great water.
I don't know. They're probably gonna put in one of these fancy water fountains that fills up bottles and stuff. I mean, I don't know. Those are very expensive. You want to get rid of the water fountain in War Memorial? Do we need a water fountain, Jonathan?
It's
We'll
a
have to see if that
replacement,
one's in
right? It's a
the.
replacement.
Yeah, we'll have to see if that one's in the courtroom or upstairs.
I think it's
Um,
I think it's downstairs next to the
Yeah.
bathroom before you go through the metal detector, right?
But it's one like out here where you push the button.
I
Or
believe
it's
that's
one
old.
with the bar.
No,
old-timey,
it's not
isn't it?
censored.
Like it's the one that you push the bar or something.
Yeah, it's not a sensor. It's a push the bar.
No, but I mean, it's not one of the ones where you turn the bottle upside down.
Oh.
Shenandoah.
No, it's the one that
No, this is a water fountain, like recessed kind
Is that
of
the thing
water
on
fountain, if you think of it that way.
Yeah, that's the ones. What do you want to do? You want to?
It doesn't,
I mean,
it
it's,
doesn't cost much.
I mean, I think.
I mean, it's not a huge.
All right. What do y'all want to do?
Some of
Leave
those
it.
people sit there for a long
All
time.
right.
Need a drink
Leave
of water.
the water fountain. Cardi, you've been
all
outvoted.
right.
Social services. We're doing some painting on the exterior, including the dormer, water heater, and then the sidewalk. The sidewalk. Let me go. I'll go and look. I go to the vet's office there almost every day. It seems like. Yeah, exactly. We'll go look at that, and we'll put a question mark on the
Because
sidewalk.
it's got
I
rail
go there
on
for
there.
a
and
meeting
stuff.
every month, and I don't know where this.
Yeah,
like
if you
that.
look where the railing meets the sidewalk, which also meets the curbing, on the side where the side parking is, like I say, if you drive in the entrance, the sidewalk there.
All right,
You
look
see-
at,
when you
I
look
got
at-
photos of it.
is it bad?
It needs to be addressed. I don't know if it's $4,400 because they put man hours estimates in there. One person should be able to do that in a day.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Even if we say yeah, then we gotta.
How about
Really
this? How
get the
about
prices right.
let's just remove it from this, and we'll try to handle this in facilities. It's what we did with the walkway coming up from the parking lot out there. Is if it's a minor repair, we'll try to cut it and fix it, or
Good plan. That's a good plan. All right. Sheriff's office. We've got HVAC for 22,880. We've removed the 50K for the A&E. ABC building. We've got HVAC. We need to buy some fire extinguishers and some signs. Anybody want to just leave that one going? The Estes house. We've got masonry. We've got water. We got a water heater and more fire extinguisher and signs. Leave it.
I think so.
There you go. We got the transfer station. We're getting rid of the gypsum. We're going to look at the roof and the sides on the metal, and we're going to check into the scales.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm skeptical as can be about. So we'll check those.
check into the scales.
The Clore house. We're getting rid of the flooring. As far as the tiling, we're getting rid of the distribution panel unless it's the one that.
I could even go by and look at that.
Thank you. All right, Dustin's going to take a look at that.
And the water heater would just be the cost of the water heater. We're able in-house to wire that up.
Yeah, that's the
And
only
plumb
thing
it
left is the water heater.
So we got. There you go. So we're knocking the.
Yeah.
We're leaving the water
Let's, Jennifer raised a good point. I think if we only have like one or two of these items, we can handle this under our facilities budget.
here. I'm guessing that y'all are taking notes on this, and they're going to. I figured. And maybe this next time, briefly, next Thursday, you just even if you include it on the OneDrive or whichever way we get to at that point, then we'll at least have an updated list, and we can kind of move on through. Is that about right?
Yes.
All right. All right. Dustin's going to go look at the power panel. The red barn. We're not doing anything. There you go. 414. We're going to look at the vapor barrier and possibly this device that Miss Warren talks about. We're all very skeptical of $24,000 and how hard it is on people's knees to crawl under a crawl space.
And they did list that of, I think it was around 53 or 5,600 square feet. So it does run.
That's pretty, all right. We're going to look into it. The 410 0, the Kriglersville 0. We're leaving 750 in place for EMS. Kemper House gets 0. The extra, we're doing the cars, the ADs.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do with the ADs?
It's your
Well,
summary
I think
page.
Charlotte and I got outvoted, didn't we?
I mean, I think the sheriff's department needs one.
Okay.
Oh, absolutely. I think sure.
I just-
It should be mounted on the wall in that little box.
Cut it in
But-
half and let's get started.
All right.
I
That would
thought
that
you
would
were
at
talking about
least
car.
outfit the top command with those and one in the building. So if you utilize Supervisor Dawson's strategy, it would at least
I can't
accomplish
believe he
that.
hadn't just bought one for the building.
I thought there was one. I really did. I thought
We've-
there was one.
We purchased and outfitted the buildings, and then there was a grant for some of the others. I think the Culpeper Wellness Foundation gave a grant.
15 grand.
All right. Cut it in half. For the
AEDs.
Sheriff's.
No, I think I
No,
do.
I thought that is a good suggestion. Cut in half. The tasers were waiting on the sheriff. The cars we're buying. There's no other option there. I'm sorry. The stop the bleed for EM, and that's about it. The other ones we're looking at prices on the court cams.
Yeah, we're going to get rid of that 525.
Well,
I'm just asking to
yeah.
get rid of that.
we're leaving the court cam thing in there on hold, right?
Yes, sir.
And then Hoover Ridge, no value, but we'll add it to the list. and we're going to do the implementation of phase 2 and phase 3 of 173, 364 for Tyler. Am I missing anything, folks?
Well, just one question, going back to the animal shelter, are we gonna evaluate the HVAC situation to see if actually possible?
I think I've got it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I really do, and it's fortunate, and it goes to like Dustin's comment about the hot water heater, and Jonathan's comment too. If we can do them in house, it looks to me like they have figured up some of these numbers on the way high side. The $42K for the HVAC, we certainly are going to competitively shop, and we'll see what we can do in the most efficient way.
So what I'll do on specifically that one, we'll have a company come in and just, sorry, you know what we have, what can we do differently with maybe one or two zones and price that.
I'm glad we're having this, and I'm real worried about it, but I hope we do it right. If we use this Bureau Veritas software to map our inventory and what we fix, I mean, it seems to me that I've heard about replacing, and the one that comes to me is social services. I think we've replaced those HVAC units. We've replaced some of them during my time on here. And there's other buildings, but it's hard when I'm sitting here trying to think which ones, and I don't know. Roger Berry would be able to tell us in a heartbeat. But it seems like we're replacing these things on a regular basis. We need to be more mindful of how we're dealing with these things. And I don't understand why we've got so many hot water heaters that are failing. Like it just seems weird to me.
Yeah.
Anybody else got anything on these? And Miss Warren's going to add next week updated sheet on this.
Yes.
Thank you. Jonathan, what else we got?
That's all we had, Mr. Chairman, for the day.
Do have any closing remarks?
This was a great process. Well, at least we're putting the 70-some K to good use. And of course, most of that was the school side for the condition assessment. But for me, it's important to have those lists. Lists are big to me. So if we deal with the unknowns, it's just reactive maintenance. So that was the point of this exercise of asking the board to fund this report. We can get down in the dollars and so forth on it and get better, try to obtain the best pricing, but making sure we're tracking it. It's about life cycle. So to get back to Supervisor Dawson about capital asset replacement, well, you kind of have that built in here. If you're using lifespan and cycles, plus we have our own, I don't know if we call that a depreciation schedule or a policy on that, like HVAC. That's how we told social services that we have a 10-year policy, not a 20-year. So we need those life cycles. So I think this is the first step in the right direction.
So, hey, Jennifer, how is this report from Veritas going to be housed? Or do you know that yet? I mean,
From the meeting with them, they have it online, correct?
Is that what you mean?
yeah.
I'm trying to.
Where is it going to reside, and how who's going to upkeep it, and who's going to have access?
We'll have the software. We'll have the access the same as the schools. As far as the reports, you'll have those electronically, and we'll put those online. But as far as the updating is, which I think you're talking about, we'll have that.
Their system, right?
Yes. Do you have the option to let them maintain it, but just give it to us, and we should be able to maintain it based on your decisions year over year.
The next week we've got departments and outside agencies. What time did you go home last night, Jonathan?
9 something, but I love it here. So that's me.
That's very positive.
Good.
The only
Good choice of words.
the only comment I got. If you've got any of this stuff beforehand, is that an option?
For the outside agencies,
Like for any of them, is there any way if you
outside agencies,
can you send it to us early?
you can have that. I don't want to overcommit to you, but I know well in advance, as well as we will put those in the packet, and that will be published.
I'd like to look at some of this stuff.
It's good
Yep.
to look at.
And we understand y'all are real busy, like in every way. Anybody else got anything?
Public comment.
Yeah. All right. Public comment. Yes, ma'am.
So the public had asked
getting these reports over, and there is a packet, would that be on the website that you can go?
I don't see a problem when they have it, you have it. Right now, what we're trying to do through my call tomorrow is making sure the draft can get to the final form. So if there's any discrepancies, and then once it goes to the board, the answer is yes.
No, the draft you're talking about, that's just the Bureau Veritas report.
Yeah.
Just that, but that's going to come in on the 6th. So I mean, that's
N-
what?
No, sir. The 6 is the
Ah,
EMS
God dang it,
PR.
sorry.
I have a phone call
We'll get you whatever
tomorrow.
we got.
Yeah.
No big deal. And
Yeah.
we'll get you whatever we got. That's no big deal.
But let me make sure, Kim, or Ms. Smith, I'm tracking. So it's Bureau Veritas report, but there were some other items you mentioned.
I also mentioned that next week's meeting with the agencies, we're going to be approaching if any early documents you get will be part of the packet, and like the planning commission would have their packet, we would have this packet online, so we could download.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. We should have that Department Outside Agencies actually published as we would normally do. Today, I realize is a little unorthodox in trying to get some of the initials, but yes, we will have that online. You're welcome.
Whatever we get. Yes, sir.
Supervisor Dawson suggestion for that agency, but they can cover what is going to be the best information? PDF, any type of portfolio of the equipment. About 7 years old now, all versus.
When
I don't have it on plan.
how are the lobbyists doing with that support the voting industry? I mean, I'm serious. That's the problem I've got here is that if we end up buying a bunch of voting machines in 2 years, they're going to say, well, now we've got to go back to the digital side. That's ridiculous.
Major problem.
God, but still.
So,
There are about 4 bills right now. Some that would move back to the government. And these are just those that would affect general rights starting with short. I don't certainly not the major services. Because I don't think this is.
All right, no, let's hope. The last one was awful. Good Lord.
It was awful. We got really lucky.
we need to look. Yes, we need to look at that. Just call it voting equipment.
All right. No, I just want to be in that traffic.
But we ought to be putting together a list of.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. I made a note. They were purchased in 2015,
I've got a list, I'll put something on.
The information you want to pass to me is great.
I'll try to get into the.
That'd be wonderful. We do need to add it.
You got anything else? You got any public comment back there? All right.
Oh, I got one more thing I want to ask Jennifer real quick because I got to go to the bathroom. But
Personal, isn't it?
over the years, I know Kevin and I have done it all the time, and you too. Is like, when somebody says, "Oh, we need, 175,000," we go, "Well, okay, that's a penny on real estate taxes." So I can't imagine it's still 175. I'd like to know what is a penny worth now? 200.
Ask Brian. We'll have to ask Brian Daniel because we're wanting
Would
that
y'all
number.
do that? Just because I went to a school board meeting. I wasn't even on the board, I don't think, and they said, "Oh yeah, we want 600,000." And during public comment, I stood up. I said, "By the way, that's like 4.5 cents per hundred on people's taxes." And they go, "What are you talking about?" but then when you explain it, then it puts it in. So I like having that number in my head.
It does keep it back.
It keeps it in perspective. Yeah.
Anybody else got anything? So would y'all like to do?
So we
Move
don't
to
adjourn.
adjourn.
We
Oh, yeah, we're not.
continue
No, we adjourn.
adjourn.
Yeah.
I think you're safe to adjourn.
Okay.
You approved your budget calendar.
All right.
That has been published and approved by the board, and states when your next meeting is.
All right.
February 9th. Celebration. You certainly can do either one.
Which one?
So I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Oh, sorry,
Thank you all.
You're still talking. I'm sorry.
We said it'll be a fun next 2.5 hours.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When we
Nah,
got that
not
call
bad.
yesterday-
Talk about the courthouse, so I was, is that with C and L or?
Thank you. I appreciate it, Jim. Good Lord. We'll see y'all next week. There you go.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.